Anansi the Spider, the clever trickster god known for outsmarting the powerful, holds a dark truth, one twisted by the horrors of slavery. You won't believe how this myth was reshaped to serve a sinister agenda. Anansi has been celebrated for centuries as the African spider god, a trickster who used wit and cunning to overcome adversity. But as slavery took hold, the stories of Anansi began to shift. Suddenly, the clever spider wasn't just a hero. He became a symbol of the very system that sought to break him. Today, we're peeling back the layers of myth to uncover the twisted history behind this beloved character. Anansi originates from the Akan people of West Africa, where he was revered not just as a trickster, but as the god of wisdom, storytelling, and even creation. In African tradition, Anansi was more than just a clever character. He was a symbol of intelligence and resilience, outwitting even the most powerful forces with his cleverness. When African slaves were brought to the Americas, they brought their culture, their traditions, and their stories with them. Anansi was no longer just a god of wisdom. He became a symbol of resistance. Through these stories, slaves could communicate hidden messages, subverting the power structures that sought to keep them oppressed. Anansi's cleverness now symbolized the slaves' survival, outsmarting those who held them captive. As Anansi's stories spread across the Americas, they weren't just passed down in their original form. Slave owners and colonial powers twisted the myth, changing the narrative. Instead of seeing Anansi as a powerful figure challenging authority, they rebranded him as a harmless, silly trickster, a being who relied on wit rather than strength. In this new form, Anansi was no longer a symbol of resistance, but rather a passive figure, limited to small acts of defiance that posed no real threat. Despite centuries of misrepresentation, Anansi's legacy has been reborn in modern culture. From literature to films, his cleverness and wit are celebrated once again. Writers like Neil Gaiman, in his novel American Gods, have helped bring Anansi back to his rightful place as a powerful figure in African diasporic storytelling, reclaiming the trickster god for what he truly represents: resilience, intelligence, and defiance. Even today, Anansi's full legacy remains buried under centuries of distortion. Many still view him as a mere trickster, ignoring the deeper symbolism of survival and resistance. Reclaiming Anansi's story isn't just about honoring folklore. It's about challenging the lingering effects of colonialism that have shaped how we view African culture. Anansi's true story is a story of survival, resistance, and cultural resilience. When we view Anansi not as a passive trickster, but as a symbol of the African spirit, one that resisted oppression through wit and intelligence, we can finally begin to understand the true power of African folklore and its role in shaping history. Anansi's story is far more than just a folktale. It's a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest times, intelligence and wit can light the way. By reclaiming Anansi, we honor the strength of African traditions and challenge the misconceptions that have been passed down for centuries. Anansi's tale didn't end with just his transformation into a symbol of survival. His story continued to evolve in the face of changing times, especially as the world became more interconnected. The power of his legacy lies not only in the resistance against colonial powers, but in how his stories kept African cultural identity alive during some of the darkest times in history. When slavery was abolished and African-descended people across the Americas began to form new communities, Anansi's stories began to shift once more. This time, they became stories of community building, of how even the most oppressed people could find strength and unity in each other. Anansi's cleverness, once a tool for individual resistance, became a collective force that bonded people together, reminding them of their shared history and struggles. In the Caribbean, Anansi took on a new role as the hero of the enslaved, weaving through plantations and villages like the lifeblood of a culture that was desperate to survive. In the music and the arts, he found a home. Calypso songs, reggae tunes, and even hip-hop incorporated Anansi's clever ways, turning him into a symbol of ingenuity, something that not only resisted but thrived despite adversity. But perhaps the most powerful twist in Anansi's story came in the form of the internet age. Today, Anansi is making waves again in ways he never has before. In books, movies, and even comic books, Anansi is being reintroduced to new generations, not as just a trickster god, but as a powerful figure who embodies the spirit of resistance, adaptability, and change. For example, in recent years there has been a renewed fascination with Anansi, particularly in the realm of speculative fiction. Novels like Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman and the TV adaptation of American Gods have breathed new life into Anansi's character. But even beyond fiction, Anansi's influence can be seen in social movements, where his cleverness and resistance strategies have inspired activists around the world. In Africa today, Anansi is experiencing a renaissance, particularly in the storytelling and educational spaces. African storytellers are reclaiming Anansi as a symbol not just of the past, but of the future. These new interpretations remind us that the strength of our culture lies in our stories, and that reclaiming those stories is part of rebuilding our world. Despite centuries of distortion, Anansi has survived. His story reminds us that no matter how much history is twisted or erased, culture and identity will always find a way to survive, to adapt, and to thrive. Anansi didn't just outwit the powerful of the past. He continues to outwit time itself, emerging from the shadows of colonialism stronger than ever. As we look back on Anansi's journey, one thing is clear. His tale is far from over. The myths and stories of Anansi will continue to evolve, carrying with them the lessons of resistance, wisdom, and survival. Anansi will always be a reflection of our ability to adapt, to fight back, and to preserve what makes us who we are, no matter the forces that seek to erase us. Anansi's story is a gift. It's a tale of resilience, of a clever god who, through wit and wisdom, taught generations how to resist oppression, how to thrive in difficult times, and how to turn the odds in their favor. So, the next time you hear an Anansi story, remember, it's more than just a trickster tale. It's the story of a god who survived centuries of distortion, a symbol of African strength and intelligence that continues to inspire across the world today. If you're fascinated by African folklore, make sure to subscribe and watch our next video. You won't believe what other myths we're uncovering.